Good morning, everyone. My name is Ian Craddock. I'm a professor of electrical and electronic engineering. And the subject of my talk is the 24/7 digital home health assistant. And the question that I'd like to put to you during the talk is that, does this sort of system remind you of your lovely big sister, if you're fortunate enough to have one, or does it remind you rather more of Big Brother? And that's a question perhaps you'll be able to answer. So I want to start by sort of cutting to the chase and saying something that might seem a little bit controversial. And what I'm going to say to you is that in the years to come, sensor technology is going to enter your homes, by which, of course, I mean our homes, and it will gather information about our daily lives for healthcare purposes. Now, I'm actually fairly agnostic about this. I can see good sides and I can see some downsides as well. But I definitely believe it's going to happen, and I'd like to share with you during the talk why I do believe that that's the case. Well, one part of the answer to that question is a lot of stuff that many of you in the audience will know a great deal about, and that's to do with aging populations and the extent to which our existing healthcare systems are being stressed and being challenged by changes in demographic. For example, the fact that the number of 85-year-olds and over in the UK will more than double between now and 2035. Or looking further afield, that Japan will have the oldest population in human history by the middle of this century, with an average age of 52. Or if we take a case of China, China's retired population, the population over 65, will be greater than the entire population of Western Europe by the middle of this century. So these are very major demographic shifts. So that's the healthcare need, if you want, that's the challenge, that's the pull. And given that long-term health conditions already account for so much of our health and social care budgets, the question is, well, what's this going to mean? And undoubtedly it's the case that our healthcare systems will be very challenged to provide the quality of care that we expect. So, on the other hand, we have technology in the way that technology is developing. We've already heard a little bit about that this morning. And I would say that perhaps one of the most transformative technologies of the 21st century will be something very small and very simple, a sensor. And as the years of the century progress, we will soon be able to say that really we can sense just about anything, anywhere, and all of the time. And this little circuit here, hope you can see it, is a device from my colleague, Professor Steve Beebe at the University of Southampton. And this thing is an energy harvester. It's a very, very small circuit. And when you put it in an environment where there's motion or vibration, it can suck a little bit of energy out of that movement. And it can use it to do something with the sensor. It can take some reading. It can wirelessly communicate it back to some central point. And we can gather energy in other ways as well, photovoltaic cells, solar cells. We all know that we can do this. So we're increasingly able to make autonomous, completely autonomous. They don't have to be maintained. Batteries don't have to be changed. They don't need to be plugged into the mains. Sensors that can monitor things and communicate and send data back to a central point. And once the data arrives, we can learn about patterns. We can learn about patterns of behavior, and we can spot changes in patterns of behavior that might be indicative of some problem that we're concerned about. So looking forward to the future then, here I am sat in my lovely cottage, on the sofa, maybe eating some biscuits in front of the television one evening. And how does this picture get transformed in the years to come? Well, we can, using these little autonomous sensors, we can embed a lot of instrumentation within the home environment. We can monitor all sorts of things like temperature and light levels and air quality, which are interesting for health. But we can do other stuff as well. For example, at the bottom here, I'm showing monitoring of water consumption and electrical consumption. And you think, well, what's that got to do with healthcare? But if someone is discharged from hospital and you basically want to know if they're okay, if they're using water and electricity to cook and eat and drink, that's actually hugely significant for a very wide range of surgical procedures as to how the patient is doing as they recover. But we can do much more sophisticated things than that. We can use video sensors. Video sensors are able to, nowadays, to monitor our expressions and to learn about our state of mind and our emotional state. Might be very interesting for people who are at risk of relapse into depression, which obviously is a very costly healthcare condition. So there's a whole range of things that we can do with sensors in the home. So the question is then, well, how will we feel about this? How will we feel knowing that our home is becoming a wirelessly networked set of sensors, spying and monitoring on all the things that we do, and our changes of behavior, and the things that we do well, and the things that may be unhealthy, and the things that might be problems? And obviously, you would be entirely right to be concerned about things like privacy. But some of these things are not so bad. So if the network told you that, like this morning, it's a beautiful sunny day, and it might be a good day to cycle to work rather than driving the car, that doesn't sound so malevolent. Or if you're working on emails late at night at midnight and it says, now would be quite a good time to turn the computer off and get some sleep. You know, this is not a really major invasion of privacy, and I think if the whole thing just turned itself off, that might be quite a good plan. Or if you have an elderly relative and your relative wakes up one morning and her balance is a bit off, and she teeters and she stumbles and she's at risk of a fall, and the system gets some intervention from a nurse or a social worker before that stumble turns into a fall and a fracture and a hospital admission. That doesn't sound so bad either. So there are some upsides, and we should consider them. And we should consider our rights as well, obviously our rights to privacy, but our rights also extend to enjoy a good quality of life and enjoy healthy quality of life, and indeed to live in our own homes for as much of the time as we can, rather than being admitted to hospital. So these are not straightforward choices. So finally, to come back to the question I posed as to whether this is big brother technology or big sister, these are quite complicated questions, and the questions can be answered and the technology can be developed by clinicians and with nurses and with social workers and with carers and, as we've heard, with patients. But increasingly, it will require multidisciplinary partnership also with electrical engineers, computer scientists, machine vision specialists, mathematicians, and data miners. And hopefully together through that conversation, we can be the architects of these types of systems that will be acceptable in the home environments, because as well as being their architects, it's also, I think, probably quite inevitable that we all end up ourselves being the subjects of that experiment. Thank you.